All right, everyone. Joe Biden's little brother thinks that he indeed will be making a 2020 run. We've actually got a second announcement with Tulsi Gabbard officially throwing her hat in the ring, which would be funny. So the clown car is filling up. Warren is probably going to run. Biden, insiders apparently hinting, yeah, there's a high likelihood. I still think the jury's out, but it's possible. Gabbard running, that's pretty packed right there because you still have some C-tier candidates as well that have basically decided to run. Meanwhile, Avenatti's not. Sanders, if I had to take a wild guess, won't run. Clinton, it would be funny to see her run again. It'd be funny to see her lose against Joe Biden, who she beat up on actually in 2008. Along with Obama, he was sort of third place, if I remember correctly. While it would be funny, I don't think so. So you've already got enough people in the field, at least potentially, to have a viable race. If you have too many people, it becomes a freak show. It'd be a little bit like the Republicans in the last election as opposed to the Democrats. One thing that I think the Democrats want to avoid is the appearance, and it turned out to be true, of coronation. That is, they had last time Hillary Clinton, Sanders was the throwaway punching bag, and then three single-issue candidates that never got any traction. One dropped out after the first debate. The other two lingered on for I think the second or third, and then O'Malley leaves finally after getting 2 to 3% in most of the early states. Wowee. And after talking about his green by 2050 or whatever it was plan. That was still the funniest part of the whole fucking election, that or the hands references. By the way, I may have solved the webcam issue. We're going to see what happens. I think, looking at it like this, Joe Biden, if he gets in, is the front runner right away. He has the most he has more name recognition than the others, other than maybe Warren. Unless Clinton gets in, then she is number one on that. He's considered more likable by Democrats, of course. And about a third of the party wants him to run. I think that a lot of them, ultimately, here's what could stop Biden. A lot of that support may be just people who think he's the only one capable of winning. Like, they're looking at the rest of the field, they're like, Gillibrand, never heard of her. Gabbard, never heard of her. Who's Cory Booker? Who are these people? Elizabeth Warren rubs me the wrong way. A lot of them, I think, believe. Clinton, oh, God help us if she gets in and loses for a third time. I think they're looking at the rest of the field, and a lot of the pragmatists want Biden to run. The thing that can break that is if Biden makes too major a mistake early on, if he gets in. Or if someone else has a real shining moment. Like you saw this again in 2016. Within the Republican Party, there were technically at different points 5 different frontrunners. Now, Trump, obviously, he hits his peak. He maintains it because of his strategy. Other people become flashes in the pan over and over. There's like Ben Carson. There's Ted Cruz, there was Marco Rubio, Rand Paul very early on, technically speaking, was the first candidate to really rise up towards the higher ranks, well out of the initial sort of lane he was in. He was very close to being a top-tier candidate when Trump actually broke through, which must have pissed him off a bit, though they seem to be fairly friendly now. You could see that happen again, but you could see a situation in which you have a Trump effect. Maybe a Bloomberg comes in, says off the wall, says crazy shit, and sucks all the oxygen out of the room. I would say it's more likely that certain other candidates would do that, like a Gillibrand. She's not going to become the firebrand, she's going to be the Gillibrand. She's going to try to be calm and centered, occasionally take a swipe at someone, that's about it. Warren will be the hothead. She'll implode, I think, early on if she runs. Joe Biden has the chance to become the Democratic nominee. It's just a function of he's old, he's wealthy and white, and he's dynastic, technically speaking. He's seen as, he's Obama's VP. That's what he's known for, mainly by the millennial voters. They don't know anything about how he served the fucking Carter administration. Wasn't it the Carter administration is when he first gets into politics? They don't know anything about that, or his time during the 80s and 90s. They don't know anything about the 90s other than the Clintons were there and gas prices were low, and then they invented Pokemon, basically. So you get situation where Biden is, again, 25, 30%, maybe 35% of the vote. That's a lot in a packed field. You've already got a field that has more than 3 people in it. It's just that the only other declared candidate with any legitimacy is Tulsi Gabbard at this point. Warren has not officially declared. She's just saying, maybe. I think personally there's a good chance she doesn't end up running anyway, because she'll be like, if you have to form an exploratory committee, it means that you're not starting out as a top-rung candidate. You're sort of on the second rung. It's viable, but you have to work harder. How hard can a 69-year-old woman work, especially when she's going to get antagonized? Especially if you have a bunch of other female candidates. The female candidates will strangulate each other until there's only one left anyway, because they're all going to be compelled by the Democratic Party's strategy to use I am a woman as a platform. You're going to see this weird dynamic if there are multiple female candidates where they're trying to outwoman each other. Well, I sponsored this bill that strengthens, if you assault or human traffic or whatever, young girls and stuff, it increases the sentence. Oh, well, I made this welfare program for underprivileged inner city girls to study basketball. And you know that it's going to happen. And it's going to be hilarious. You saw some of the Republicans try to do this, out-tough guy one another, but they could never match with Trump. It's like Marco, least of all, because he's like, 5'0", he wears lifts, and he has to snort Adderall or whatever in order to debate or anything, and looked all disheveled, by the way, when he dropped out. Did you see it? He looked a little bit like Nate Silver the day after the election. Yeah, I think that Joe Biden's a better than 50-50 chance at this point. If his young brother is saying, yeah, I think he's going to run, it's a pretty good indicator. Because this isn't just like, some long-term advisor says, oh, well, I think that Joe would make a good president. It's like, no, this is someone who he has interpersonal contact with and had before he was ever in politics. This is someone who presumably knows him. And I wish him well if he decides to get in, because the funny part is, Joe Biden, ideologically, not talking about his behavior, but on the ideological spectrum, is more sane than a lot of these other Democrats. Could actually, technically speaking, be viable. Or at the very least, I don't think he would get trashed as hard as a lot of the others. If Warren runs, it would be a disaster. If Clinton runs, it would be a disaster. If Tulsi Gabbard runs, I'll be analyzing this. Trust me, it would be a total disaster. A total wipeout election. Gabbard's not electable. There are people who think that she is. No, I totally disagree. That's about all. Peace out.